Okay, today I'm gonna talk about Express CRUD application. So what is CRUD? Create, read, update, and delete. So server mainly focus on 4 tasks: create, update, read, delete. This is CRUD, right? So as long as you can just do it, your server is able to do this. So basically, you can just run your server application on any devices, right? So it will be good enough to provide services. So now we to demonstrate it, we need a template which has front end template which has the basic CRUD function. This is totally random. I just found one on the Google, right? So that's just me. Let me just get this one first. Okay. So okay. Now I do install and npm start. So let's take a look at this this table. So this table has these functions, right? CRUD. So first, this add, right? So add. This is a list of tutorials. So you can add tutorials, and in this using this button, you can edit, which is update tutorial, and in this one, you can delete a tutorial, and you can remove all the right. So create, read, and update. So when you click this edit button, you need to read the information of each record, right? So the tutorials, each record, and then you can delete it, create a read, update, and delete, right? So you can use either template you want. I just found on the Google randomly, as you can see here. So this one is the third one, and the reason why I chose this because the first one has no screenshot. So okay, so yeah, now it's running, right? It's running on the port 8000. So I'm gonna open it, and I'm gonna do some basic setup. So first I'm gonna come to the readme file and download CRUD template and create db.json file to simulate database. Okay. So we need a database. We need a server folder first. We need a server file, server.js. We need a db.json file. Yeah. So first, I wanted this front end running on port 3000, and I want to set up a proxy right here. So proxy backend. I'm gonna set backend as port on the port 8000. And we create a Axios instance. So we have already got the proxy, so we can send requests from our we can send requests from the front end port. Okay. So yeah, okay. So let's. Okay. Then I need to start a server. Const express dot require express const app dot express, and app is listening on the port 3000 function console.log running on the port 8. So right, 8. Okay, now server should be run without error. So again, I come to the source code folder and I took one server. Now server has start, right? So it says there is an error. What the error is? So the server responds with let's try it again. Tutorials 44. Okay, so now we have already set up this server, right? So we need to come back, handle this is view request. As you can see here, so 44 not found, right? So it means that this request has failed because they cannot find any data from this URL. So how do we handle that? We have a tutorial services. As you can see here, so each one is different. So first we import this Axios instance as an object, and we send request based on this Axios object, right? Get request, post, put, delete, right? We gotta handle it at one by one. So the first one is get all. It means that it gotta print in the front end. It gotta print the list of tutorials, right? So okay, so I can do app.get. So the tutorials function request response. So now I want to insert some data right here. So ID one title test description 1 and the status false, right? So you may ask me, why do you know that you need these properties? Because as you can see it here, so right, so title description status, well, of course you need a unique ID as a key when you traverse the array, the tutorials array, right? And if you don't know, you can check this source code file right here and to see which kind of data you're gonna display from the front end, and each one is supposed to have its own property, right? Own field in the database, right? So I'm not gonna go through the front end stuff right here just to save some time, right? I have another React tutorial, so if you're not quite sure about that, you can just check it. So basically, just here you pass tutorials data as the data, and this tutorial contains some information. I didn't check this front end either. I just use it by instinct. So because there are 3 fields right here to display it, right? So you need abolishly you need these 3 fields, right? So okay, now I'm gonna I have the data here, so I'm gonna read the data and display it on the front end, right? So read file. So if we wanna fs, we need to require fs, right? Yeah. And we need to read file. We also need a path, right? Require path read file. So the first parameter is path. Path join current folder address and db.json file. And if we got the data, we can display it. So res.send data, right? Yeah, as you can see here, so data has been displayed here. How to see? successfully, right? Now we just finished the first. So handle get all HTTP requests, right? We just finished the first request. So the second one is get, right? Handle get HTTP request. Again, it's pretty straightforward. We just copy this. So so this get request, if you look at this, there is a tutorial /$ curly bracket ID, which means this ID is a variable, right? So how do we handle this? So get variable value from URL using req.params in Express, right? So from the previous classes, if we want to get some query, we want to get a value from the query from the URL. Probably we want to split the URL. We use some path name, but in this case, if we use this Express framework, we can just get this variable right here in this way. So now you name this field of URL, or this part of URL, this part of request named as ID. So how do we get that? It's fairly simple. Const ID, and ID is request.params. Then you can get ID, right? So now you have the ID, and you have this data. This data should be a list first, right? So let tutorials equal to json.parse.data. The reason why I use json.parse because the data is binary format, right? So we need to convert this into a JSON. If we want to manipulate the data, we need to convert it either to a string or some other data type, so that we can do something on it, right? So now we have these tutorials. We're gonna fed the specific object with this ID, right? So how do we do that? We can just do that fed tutorials fed atom return atom.id equal to ID, right? Then we just send this back, right? So if I refresh, then I click this edit button icon, as you can see here. So now this object has been retrieved, right? So public function abstraction. So as you can see here, so we do read file here. We do read file here as well. So if we wanna create a new record of tutorial, a piece of tutorial, we need to read the data from the database, and we're gonna add this new object into the database again, right? So we still need the read file. So it means that so based on the best practice, or programming principle, right? We cannot just read this read file time and time again this is a public function, so we need to do function abstraction. We need to make this as a public API so that all other functions can use it without problem. So it means that I'm gonna create the attach a function stuff. Right now we have a function. So I just copy this right here. If you want to use this, we need to import this too first, right? So in this part we don't need this read file anymore, and again we're gonna return this, right? Now return. We need to encapsulate this as a new function. So okay, so let's call it const get data. Okay. So I just do this. And then we're gonna export get data. Right? Now we just export this. So this is the rules of in the Node.js to export some functions, right? We have already learned how to import and export in React in the front end. So you don't have to worry about that. I in this way you just export a function separately. So in the next several class I'm gonna talk about the rules of the common.js or Node.js, how to do import and export, how to use modules from other from other files. So right here you just know what you need to know is just we export this function, that's it. So now we got this data. What should we do? We can give it a callback. Okay, so if we got this data, we can do something on this data, right? So it's pretty straightforward. And now we got data. We're gonna give it a callback function. So if we wanna use it, we need to import this get. Functions. Yeah. So now we can get the data and we pass this to function, and we can do set data. Yeah, we passed the data right here, right? So let's take a look. No problem, right? So this one has broken, so we need to we need to use this get data as well, right? So get data, give it a function. So right, we get the data, we give it a callback function, we do something based on the data returned. Let tutorial JSON parse fan resume. Let's try it. I click edit. Yeah, no problem, right? No problem. Okay. So let's go back to this. So get all, get based on ID, and create, right? So now we create, handle a create request. So handle create HTTP request. So app dot, this one is post, right? So you can see it here. So it's post tutorial slash tutorials and request and response. So what do we want to do? We want to create. So this one gonna accept some data right here, right? So we need to get the data. Get post body from URL using request.body in Express. Okay, whatever. Let's just print this request. Anyway, right? So create request body. Do add test 2 submit test 3 submit tutorial. As you can see here, so body has been transferred, right? So based on this tutorial, there should be a tab which is post, but anyway this is a post, right? So create, this is a poster, right? So now we want to get this one. We need another middleware express.json, right? We have already talked about this from last class. So now let's just try to get this first. So const ID title description status from request.body title description. Test 3, as you can see here, right? So in the server, we have already got this data. So now we have already get the data passed from the user input, right? So how do we create a new object? We just add tutorial object, and we give it an ID, right? In this case, I'm gonna use the Nodejs ID again, just to save some time. If you want to use it, we need to do Nodejs ID Nodejs ID. So why didn't I import this Nodejs ID? Because you come to modules and you search Nodejs ID. As you can see here, it's already installed, right? It's already installed by Express or any other frameworks. It depends, right? So now it's we have this Nodejs ID, and we have title, we have description, we have status should be false, because when you look at this, I delete this. Let's just show it again. Okay, so const log as you can see here, so ID is undefined and status is undefined, right? Because you only got title and description from user, and the rest of the two you have to handle it yourself, right? So this is the reason why I use this one, nano ID, and I set the status as false at the beginning. So I don't need this one anymore. So no status, right? Okay. Now we need to push this object to database, right? To persist this data, this piece of data. So we need to get data, and we do function and again we just get this list and tutorials dot push tutorial object, right? So after this we need to what we should do, we need to save the data into the db file, db.json, right? So now this is another public function which will be used by lots other anywhere, right? So it's called save data, right? So write file pass on there's no data error. If there is error, if there's not. So tutorials, right? So how do we save that? Save data. Yeah, we just give it a tutorial list, right? So tutorials and console dot data saved. All right, so write file, you just you need to pass this second parameter, right? If you want to write file, so X for save data, let's try it. So save data yeah, no problem. So tutorials test 3 and we do submit. Oh, internal error, so something okay, so we need to whatever end the request anyway, right? So test 3 tutorials create post tutorials data. We get this data, we create a new tutorials, push tutorial save data rest.set. So what's wrong here? Function tutorial. Running on the port. Let's just push this again. Alright. Tutorials, add test 3. So the path argument must be type of string receive. Okay. I guess we in this part we okay. Sorry. Okay. So tutorials. Alright. Okay, no problem. Test 4. Submit. Must be type of string or an instance of buffer. Okay, no problem. So JSON dot stringify okay. Test 5. Submit. You have submit successfully. So it says a component is changing control input to uncontrolled input. Okay, so this is a front end problem, right? So let's take a look. Add tutorial, right? So 34. Add tutorial 34 input. Okay. Test 5, 6. Okay, no problem. No error message anymore. So I'm gonna not talk about the solution. I mean the problem of the front end in this case, right? So okay, let's back to the tutorial. As you can see, so we have successfully add new record. I mean tutorial data into the database file, DB file, right? So handle create HTTP request, right? So okay, so another one is look at this update, right? Handle update HTTP request. So this one is a little bit how to say, it's a little bit tricky. As you can see here, so this is a put method, right? This is a a standard of Axios, or you can see RESTful API. So anyway, you just put so they pass the value of the variable into the URL and as a post body as well. So it doesn't matter. It just make no difference. We just simply do put and tutorial and ID and function request response. Right. So again, let's take a look. Let's take a look. Request.params and id.title.description status from body. Let's just take a look. What? Okay. Console ID title description status. Okay. So this is update. Update. Okay. This one is update icon, right? So we click the number 1, we give it a number 2, we do update. So let's take a look at this. So what has been print? It seems like nothing has been print in the console. ID, title, description, false, no problem. But update for not found. Maybe we need to end this first. Okay, let's give it a 2. Let's see, update. Okay, tutorials. Let's give it a 2 and do update. So 1 test, 2 false. So we print. So ID, title, description, status, right? So 4 fields: ID, title, description. Yeah, and as you can see here, so our tutorial has been updated successfully. So now we can get this data. So can we just get the data from body? No, we cannot get it from body, right? Yeah. Anyway, now we have the information from the user input, right? We can get the information from the user input. Now we need to fed the object in the database and modify that object and put that back to the database, right? So first we need to get data, and we give it a function data, and data is a tutorial list. We get this list, we need to let fed tutorials dot fed atom return atom dot id equal to id, right? So now we get this one, so we need to change this fed. We need to modify this object, right? So let update object fed whatever you want to change, ID, title. Actually, you don't need to change ID, right? So just do title, description, or status. All right. Now we have this new object. We got this new object, and we need to save this to actually this one has already okay. Okay, so I'm gonna add new tutorials. Tutorials updated objects, right? New tutorials. Okay, let's try it. I come to this, I click number 1, test description 1, I give it a description 2, I do update, and I come back to this. Oh, it has not been changed. Why? So tutorials ID. Okay, let's just use filter instead. All right, so filter update filters to temp list. Now we have a temporary list, and we give it a updated object ID, title, description, status, and we do temp new tutorials, just save data, temp list, then update object, res temp. Click this number 1 again, number 2, update it. No, now it's 2, right? Now it's 2. If you want to put this on top of it, you can just move this update object, right here, before the temporary list, right? So as you can see here, there's nothing actually special, right? So you just it's kind of like do a combination of our request params and the request body, right? So it's pretty straightforward. And now we have already finished this update. This is a put, right? So we can do a remove. Handle remove HTTP request. Delete. You don't have to worry about that, right? So it's all quite similar. So yeah, now we get this one. We don't need this anymore. We don't update this anymore. We just simply save data temp list. That's it, right? That's it. Delete, no problem, right? Has been persisted into the database file, right? So and remove all. Okay, let's just finish this one. All right. Handle remove all HTTP request. Right? Again. So it is delete without this one is empty array. Okay. Now I have one, I want to add one. So test 1, submit, back to tutorial list 1 and 2. I do remove all. Give me an error. Oh yes. Okay. Let's just refresh that. And we come back to this and we open this. As you can see here, this empty array. So this one should be we shouldn't set an empty array right here. correctly. So, but anyway, you can just remove all right now. So let's go back to this. So get post body from URL using. Yeah, okay. So this is pretty much about the CRUD, right? So we can get create, update, delete, and create CR read, right? So we can also read. The first one is read. Get all or get by ID. They are all read, right? So you can use it on some other you can just try this on some other template as long as this template has the basic add, remove, or edit function, then you're good to go. And there's another request. It is fed by title. I think it is pretty similar to fed by ID or something. You just simply use a var card to match the title. So anyway, this is pretty much about the CRUD application built by Express. And in the next class, probably we're gonna talk about how to persist the data into the database, which is MongoDB, instead of this JSON file, right? So okay.